So Emily, you'll be pleased to know that I'm not going to ask you a single question. I'm just going to give you this microphone.
Okay.
And I'm going to hand over to my lovely, beautiful assistant, Becca.
I get to ask you questions instead. Okay. Right, so let's just start off with the basics. What exactly is your job?
Oh, right. So, Police and Crime Commissioner, I am elected to be the public voice in policing. So, it's my job to make sure that the police do their job properly, that they are prioritising the issues that matter most to you as the public. I fund things like Victim Care Merseyside to make sure that if you're a victim of crime, you get support to help you cope and recover. You know, some of the incidents that we've just seen from St Julie's, really important that you get the right support to help deal with whatever's happened. So I fund lots of those services as well. And I fund the Violence Reduction Partnership as well, and we've helped to make today happen. So yeah, lots of work that I get to do in my job.
Wonderful. Quick question. Do any of your officers get training specifically for ACEs and how to deal with people that may have been affected by them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there's a really thorough programme that Merseyside police officers and staff will go through when they're recruited. But one of the things they have started to look at in the last couple of years is ACEs, and really trying to understand that when they're going out and they're speaking to, they're responding to incidents, or they're dealing particularly with young people, recognising actually there might be stuff going on at home. And so, you know, things like trauma, so a lot of the stuff that we've just seen, if you've been a victim of abuse, or if there's other stuff going on at home like ACEs, what can the police do to better respond to that, rather necessarily in some cases just arresting them if a crime's been committed. So yes, there's lots of work being done, particularly with our new recruits. We've just recruited over 600 new police officers, so there's lots of discussion about ACEs in their training as well.
That's incredible. Do you have anything specific to young people that you may come across? I know youth violence is going up quite a lot recently. Is there anything specific to that?
So, interestingly, just to come back on that, actually we are seeing serious violence reduce on Merseyside, which is really welcome. Particularly things like knife crime, you know, and firearms. We want to see that continue to go down, and I think that engagement and work that we do with young people is a really key part of that. So the Violence Reduction Partnership, as we've talked about, getting involved in events like this, the Mentors and Violence Prevention Programme we do as well, which is all about young people talking to other young people about some of these big issues, things like mental health, things like racism, things like knife crime. It's really important, I think, that we have those conversations with young people to think about how we can empower them to maybe push back if they're feeling like pressure to get involved in crime or other activities. So yeah, there's absolutely loads that we're doing to try and really engage young people.
Sounds incredible, and what you do is very important. Now, we understand what ACEs is, but could you maybe describe to the people here how directly it could affect crime and increase crime?
Yeah, so I think we notice that when you look at people who are in prison now, for example, or individuals who have gotten involved in crime at some point in their life, quite often it's because they've experienced ACEs as a child. So we know, for example, and again it was alluded to in St Julie's performance, if you have been a child that's been a victim of domestic abuse, or you've been in a home where there has been domestic abuse, you quite often will learn that, and that will become your normalised approach. And so they quite often go on to become abusers themselves. So actually, if we try and recognise that trauma and recognise how ACEs might have played a role, we know that we can try and stop them becoming kind of criminals or offenders of the future. And that can be involved in all sorts of different types of criminality, where it might be young people have had a parent maybe that's struggling with mental health or with substance abuse, and it might be that they feel like they haven't had that support to process what's happening, and sometimes they then feel the only option open to them is maybe to get involved in with gangs or other kind of crime. So we do know there is a link between ACEs and those individuals who do get involved in crime. So the more we can tackle ACEs and provide the right support early on, the more we can hopefully put people on a positive path.
And that just highlights the importance of tonight, everyone. And just one final question to you. A lot of people try to say that ACEs and adverse childhood experiences are an excuse for crime. What would you say to those people with those beliefs?
It's not about it being an excuse. I think we recognise that there'll be lots of people who will experience ACEs who don't go on to commit crime. So it's not about saying if this happens to you, you will therefore become a criminal, or indeed that if it has happened to you and you then go on to commit crime, that somehow excuses it. But I think it's about saying what we all want is to stop people from offending in the first place. And we recognise that if you've suffered some of these adverse childhood experiences, it puts you in a really dark place. And what we want to do is to try and bring people out of that dark place, make them feel supported, make them feel loved, help them process what's happened to them, so that actually they are less likely to then go on to commit crime in the future. So it's not an excuse, but I think if we all want to try and tackle crime and antisocial behaviour, recognising the impact and how it can make people really vulnerable to getting exploited into crime, that is how we're going to tackle it and stop people from getting involved in the future.
Thank you so much. It's really important to have key figures such as you here speaking to an audience directly. We can speak, but it really does, change does happen because of the higher ups, but it comes from young people, so it's important to see that people like you, key leaders, are paying attention to what we're saying, and that's the whole point of NAFA. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.